And Susan, thank you for championing ballot curing and other good, procedures that make sure that all votes get counted. And Elizabeth, I want to recognize you and Jeffrey too for your work in really speaking up about good election procedures here. And Larry, thank you for getting us last year the connection to be able to track the ballot return envelopes. That was great. And what a team. It's just a pleasure to see you all here. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart because I'm just a total election nerd. So thank you. First item of business, election of officers. Any nominations for committee chair? Nomi?
I'd like to nominate Marty Langland for our committee chair.
Any other nominees? Well, I will gratefully accept the honor and glad to serve again. Thank you. Let's have an actual vote on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good to go. And nominations for vice chair. I would like to nominate Larry Wasson. Any
Well,
other
wait a minute.
nominees?
Let me find out here first. Who's Marty Langland? That's what I'm trying to
Oh,
catch.
I know. She's just this unknown character who never says anything. Would you be willing to bail out the committee if Marty gets hit by a truck?
Yes, sure.
I take that as accepting the nomination. Let's do a vote. All in favor of Larry Wasson as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. All right, good to go. Congratulations, Larry, and thank
Thanks.
you. Now we have two members left, Elizabeth and Nomi. And Elizabeth, I think, might be willing to be our secretary. Elizabeth, is that a true statement?
Yes, I will try my best.
Thank you so much.
I nominate
thank you.
Elizabeth Goldberg as secretary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous, Elizabeth. Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
writing.
I know you are. You don't need to write everything down, but thank you for taking notes.
You can tell me afterwards how much.
Yeah, it again, we don't need to record it. We have a recording. We are doing, and that's
Right.
actually the next item on the agenda here, which is deciding the format for the election committee meetings. This one's being recorded, and I personally feel very strongly that all of our meetings should be recorded because elections are important. And I would just ask for a vote here. Is there anyone who's opposed to recording our election committee meetings for the entire year? Okay, let's vote to do it. I move that we record all meetings for the election committee for this calendar year. Please say aye if you agree.
Aye.
Agree.
Aye.
And opposed? No. Okay, unanimous. Okay, the other thing in terms of the format for the meetings is there was a considerable discussion a few years ago about how open the committee meetings should be, whether residents would be able to comment and provide their input during a meeting as opposed to being held silent or mute until the end of the meeting after the decisions were made. And I know a number of us who are here tonight were quite concerned that you really have to let people speak before you make a decision, not afterwards. And I actually wrote a little piece up for the council. Arthur and Katie, you remember this from a few years back about the importance of an open meeting format that was more participatory. So let me just ask for the committee's input. Open meeting format, which means that residents will be invited to participate in discussions as we go along, or a more controlled meeting format where residents can only speak at the end. Which do you all prefer?
I vote for open meetings.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
second that.
Second it.
Third, and that makes four. So unanimous vote for open meetings to invite residents to participate before decisions are made. Thank you all. I think that's a really important democratic practice. In terms of other meeting practices, I think that we probably only need one meeting a month this year because, as Arthur said, did a lot of heavy lifting last year. And again, a million thanks to everybody who did that. Speaking of which, I think that Jen Bergeron has just joined us. Jen, would you unmute yourself and say hi?
Hi, Marty and team, and Naomi.
Hello, Jen.
I miss working with both of you, but I'm thrilled that some other folks have stepped up. And yeah, I can't wait to play tennis with you, Naomi.
Oh, well,
Good
in
to
my
go.
past, in my
Wishing-
dreams,
Yeah, wishing you all the best for the year ahead. And
We will-
obviously, yeah, sorry.
we will miss you.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry that just work and life makes it hard for me to be a repeat. But, you know,
Yes,
there's always next year.
yes. Thank you.
And congrats on stepping up, and we're just thrilled as citizens that we have such capable people volunteering.
Yes.
Thank you, Jen. That's lovely. Paul Weller, would you like to unmute yourself and say a few words too?
Well,
There you are, Paul.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm on now, I hope.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. There's probably nothing more important, really, as far as I'm concerned, is in Martin's Editions, and I've been a part of it since it was incorporated, as you know. Then the election committee and the work that it does. My position on the election committee has always been that it the arm's length from the council, that it serves, as I said, independently of the council. But it's an extremely important committee. We hope that we have done the heavy work this past year so that you all will be burdened with the hour and a half or more meetings that we had. At the same time, we do have important things to accomplish this year, but we hope that we have done the hard work for you, and wish you the very best, and appreciate your service to Martin's Editions, which is so important to all of us in a community that we love and share together. So anyhow, thank you all for serving.
Thank you, Paul. That's lovely. John Sharrow, you're another stalwart volunteer here in VMA. Would you like to say a few words before we move on?
You might be muted.
Unmute yourself, John.
So
While we're waiting for John, would you like to say something, Susan?
Oh, well, I think he was about to start talking.
Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
There you are, John. Yeah, welcome aboard.
Okay. Well, I just want to say congratulations to the new elected members for the election committee. And I'm sure that the work that you do this year will certainly reflect a lot of hours that you put in, and congratulations. And to our new, and Marty, congratulations on being reelected to the chair again. I think you got it well under control. Have a good year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, John.
Yep.
Thank you. Susan?
Sorry. Hi, yeah, so yeah, I was just gonna kind of say the same thing in the spirit of being a resident of the village, that I just appreciate all of you who have stepped up, from the people last year, and Paul and John and Jennifer Bergeron and everybody who served before, and all of you who are, and Larry in the past, and all of you who are now serving, and Elizabeth, and thank you to the liaisons for your time, Arthur and Jeff. And like Arthur said earlier, hopefully a lot of hard work was done last year, and hopefully this year it should be easier with plugging in some dates and just changing fewer things. So hopefully it'll be a little bit of an easier year. And like Paul said, I think it's great that the election committee has its independence, and it's from the council, and they're doing a good job, and it just inspires a lot of confidence. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you, Susan. Larry?
I just wanted to find out, John, how are you doing? Are you okay?
Is that a question to me, Larry?
Yes, I hear
Well-
you're under the weather.
Well, Larry, you never answer your phone.
In a way.
You guys need to talk to each other.
Yeah, but how are you doing? Are you?
But anyway, congratulations on your birthday, Larry. I think you're still holding up 59 or 60.
Yeah, 80 on the last month.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm actually 40, but my wife is really hard on me, so, you know, nag, nag, nag.
What was that Indiana Jones says? It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Yeah.
Peter, would you like to say a few words since you're here
Oh,
again? And again,
sure,
thank you for your past service.
Oh, thank you, Marty. I just wanted to kind of second what everyone else has said. I think it's really important that people are willing to step up and serve on the committees, and I want to thank you guys for doing it. Martin's Additions has a long and honorable tradition of fair and independent and transparent elections, and that tradition has really become embodied in a single document now with the work that was done last year by the committee and by the council in adopting the policy that is embodied there. Very sensible choice, and so I know you guys will do a great job of continuing that tradition, and it's an important service to the village. It's kind of a platitude, but it's important to say nevertheless, and so I thank you for doing what you're doing, and wish you the best in doing it. So thank you.
I have a
Thank you
question
all.
for the cons. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
the con that I keep reading about in the Washington Post as part of the administration, is that any relation with you? I'm just asking.
It's possible,
Oh, okay,
but
but
very unlikely.
okay. Thank you. You clarified that. Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay, team. A lovely way to begin the new year here. It really
Yeah.
is wonderful to have such a nice teamwork and community support. Okay, we decided to have an open format for the meeting. We decided to have our meetings recorded. One other question that came up about who can speak for the election committee. It's sort of part of the format question. Normally, the chair and the vice chair are authorized to do that. Is that okay with the other members of the committee? For the chair and the vice chair both to be authorized to speak for the committee?
Yes,
Okay,
Okay with
yes.
me?
okay, Nomi?
Yes,
Okay
for
with
me.
Okay. Normally the process would be that we would run anything by the entire committee before we do anything in writing. But this way we have a little flexibility if we need to just respond to something quickly. So that's a good way to go. It's very practical. Next item we have here is arranging for access to the committee email. I asked Michael last week to send us all the password for the committee email. He changes the committee email password every year. And I have not yet logged into the election committee email, but has anyone else here tried to log in yet? It's okay if you haven't. I haven't yet either. Okay.
Mm.
All right.
Marty,
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to suggest about that. Would it, if you could just send a test message on it to everybody and we can, reply that everything's okay?
I will do that. That's an excellent idea. As soon as I can get onto it.
So if I understand, if we send a message to that, it's like a group ID, it will automatically go to all the members of the election committee. Is that correct?
It will go to the committee email, which all the members can sign into.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it won't go from the committee email to your personal email, but you'll be able
Okay.
to sign into the committee email and see, like if you signed in every other day, you'd see whatever was new there.
All right. So it requires being proactive and going in and checking.
That's correct. That's correct.
right.
And typically what we do is have one person kind of monitor the email. And last year it was me. I don't mind doing it again unless somebody else would like to volunteer. All right, volunteering anybody? Okay. I'll check it. If there's anything on there that you need to know, I'll give you a heads up. But let me know over the next few days whether you were able to do it. I will send a test message and reply to that to let me know that you were able to read the committee email, because we all need to be able to see what's on there.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions about the email? Okay, if you have any trouble, let me know. And I'm not a tech guy, but my husband is, so we'll get you signed up for that. Okay, last housekeeping item. Who's going to do the Open Meetings Act certificate class? Larry, you and I talked about this, and you had a really good idea, I thought.
Well, I think, I know there's some I think Ron Bolt said something about a person should, know about it, but I don't think
Mhm.
that's possible for our committee. If we all don't have a clear understanding of OMA, I don't think we can function as a committee properly. So I know you can't make anybody do it, but my strongest recommendation is that all of us should be taking that course and getting the certificate.
I actually like that idea. I took the course years and years ago
Yeah,
and should probably take it again. I'll do that.
right. I mean, it takes what, about 3 hours?
No, not even. It takes like half an hour, 20 minutes, and then
Okay.
you get a certificate at the end.
Oh,
So
Nomi,
it's not
Elizabeth,
too
are you?
long.
Yeah, not too long. Larry, that means you're gonna have to sign up and take it too.
Yep.
Thank you for agreeing to do that.
Mm.
And Nomi and Elizabeth, do you want to take that?
yeah. No, I was interested in it. I just wanted, my question was how many hours it would take, to get.
No,
Get
yeah,
through
I
it.
urge everyone to do it. It's very important. It kind of is a bane in our existence because everything has to be done openly. But so I urge you to look at the rules, look at the requirements, and it doesn't take that long to do it.
Yeah, it's about 25 minutes and
Yeah, you
then
go
get
through
your
some documents and then
certificate.
you take this exam at the end. And as Marty says, you get a certificate that's suitable for framing.
With
Uh,
pride, with great pride.
That's right. Yeah, I urge everyone to go through that to see what the actual rules and advice is.
Okay.
Yeah, are we agreed? All right.
Agreed.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you. That's wonderful. The main operational impact of the OMA for our purposes is that there was a court case a few years back that said that email communications are covered by the Open Meetings Act, which means we do need to be a little bit careful about not having any substantive policy discussions via email. And you'll see that on some of my emails, I put a little thing at the bottom that says sort of boilerplate language about administrative, actions can be handled and discussed via email. Policy discussions must be handled in an open meeting if 3 or more people on the committee are involved. Any 2 of us can talk to each other by email. That's not a problem. 3 of us is a quorum. And so we need to be a little bit cautious about not having 3 or 4-way policy discussions by email. It is perfectly fine for any of the 4 of us to send documents to each other. For example, you could send a document that says, here's something I think we ought to do about recount provisions. But we can't discuss that because that's a policy question. We can send out the materials to each other and then discuss it, one-on-one until our next meeting where we can discuss as a group. All our decisions about anything of policy substance should be made in open meetings like this one. Any questions about that general procedure? It's just an area to be aware of, not to have policy discussions on email.
Mhm.
Any other questions about any of that? Okay. Residents, comments, questions, and suggestions. Paul, John, Peter, Katie, what's your question or
Oh,
comment?
I had a comment. It's unrelated to elections, but I'm so impressed by the turnout at your first meeting, and that I think you are the first committee to get up and running in the Village Martins editions. I just wanted to invite everybody to the council meeting on Thursday night. We have a special guest, County Executive Mark Elrich is going to address us.
Oh,
Wow.
And I'm very excited by this get. I just talked to corresponded with his scheduler over the weekend. So I just want to get the word out now, and I hope you all can attend and bring your questions and your comments.
Way to go, Katie.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's super.
fantastic.
Very excited.
Oh, me too. Well done. Well done. That is a big deal. That's great. This zoning thing is so huge, and boy, is he a champion on that. Wow. That's great.
Well, we
Thank
have
you.
him, bring
Go ahead.
anything to his attention. So, you're all pillars of our community, and you've lived here. Many of you are the, the OGs. So bring your issues. Tell them about it.
We sure will. We sure. Paul Weller, do you want to say anything there, or John?
I would
I-
just just.
Is this going to be by Zoom or can we all, meet at the office?
Oh, you can come in person or by Zoom. Yes,
Okay,
we'll
all right.
offer both. Sure.
And Paul,
I-
you were saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I'm on the board of the, of Martin Seditions, and, we had our annual meeting this past week, and, at the fire department, just invite, all of us, all of you to come by the fire department and get a good walkthrough of what is available there for the people in our community. They have a lot of expertise, 24/7 medical support for the community. A lot of people go there, and so just get to know the fire department in Chevy Chase that services our community.
That's
Yeah.
great, Paul. Thank you for that. And thank you for serving on the fire board. My goodness, yes. Peter? No? Larry, go ahead.
I wonder, so Paul, does the fire department have a website?
Yes, as far as I know, they do. I'm not sure it's up to date, but yeah, you can just go on with the Chevy Chase Fire Department, and I think it'll come up.
Okay. Reason I'm asking is because if I remember correctly, having served on that fire board for 16 years,
Yeah.
you guys,
Once
you
you come
guys
in.
are actually on the board of directors of that corporation, and I think that kind of information should be in our directory.
Yeah.
It's not some kind of appointment because of friendly communications by the county with Martin Seditions. It's because you're actually voting on the finances and whatever, and the infrastructure of that building and the equipment that's there.
Right.
That's an actual corporation.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's correct.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, let's zip right along here. I have 7:50 on our agenda, summary of the committee's main duties and timetable. I'm not going to read through all of those. Any questions about that sort of general layout there? I mean, this committee is one that does actually serious work and a lot of work. Hopefully less than last year. Any questions or comments about the general framework that we have ahead of us? From anybody, the committee members or residents? Okay, as it says there, we end up in May conducting an open, fair, independent election and certifying the voting results. Okay, let's move on to the action items for this evening. The first one is to set the schedule for the 2025 election. And in the packet for this meeting, I took last year's schedule. If you all have it in your packet and want to pull it up, it's a little one-pager. I'm going to pull it up here at my desk for a moment. And what it says is sort of just the dates for each item. Let's see if I can find it. Draft election schedule. You see it?
So what you did is you just updated from last year. I see you've changed almost all the dates.
Exactly. The election day was Tuesday, May 7th last year. Well, this year the Tuesday is May 6th. And then I just moved everything up by a day or two. So the official notice of the opening of the nomination period is 75 days before election day. So that moves up one day to the 21st of February. Candidate filing deadline 45 days before election day becomes March 22. And then it just follows from there. The one date that doesn't change there is the one that is actually defined by statute. Let me pull it up here again. That's April 7th. That's the date that we have to have the voter roll to the contractor, April 7th, so that they can begin preparing the ballots. Do you see that on
When
your?
you said statute is, clarify that.
In the election regulations, it actually says that April 7th is the date we have to get our voter roll to the contractor.
Okay.
Okay,
Marty,
Yes, ma'am.
I have just a question. The dates that have slashes with 2 days on them, what is the meaning of that?
Means we
Like
have a
it-
choice there. The
Okay.
forum date depends partly on when the candidates are available. And so
right.
we aimed at that. And I
Okay.
looked at those 2 dates in April, and it looks to me like I looked at the Montgomery County Public School schedule, and Katie, maybe you can help with this. Looks like that's not the school break, and it's not Easter or Passover. Um, so that looked to me like a workable date. And again, it will
Mhm.
depend. The candidates have to declare by March 22nd by the
Right.
schedule. And so we ask them as soon as they declare, so they're in, which of these 2 dates would you prefer? And then we go with that. The
Okay.
next date, I mean, the way the regs read, the current regs from last year, are that the contractor mails out the ballots to the residents, to the voters, the day after the forum. So once we have the schedule for the forum, then we can tell the contractor which day to be ready to mail the ballot packets.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Yeah, I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes, sir.
You did, I believe, a draft on the election committee guidelines. Where does that?
We're
fit?
not at the guidelines document yet. We're still on the schedule for the
Right,
election.
but is there a date for that?
For the guidelines,
Yes,
we normally adopt the guidelines at this first meeting of the year for each committee. So we'll do
Okay.
that next on the agenda.
okay.
That's an internal guidelines for us. That's not a
Yeah.
a
I'm
document
just
that the
saying that
council.
from now on, if we can, I'm just suggesting that be the first thing on the list here.
Well, yeah, absolutely, we could do that. Committee adopts its internal guidelines, first meeting
Right.
of the year. Okay?
Remember, Marty, I'm 80, so I'm gonna be drooling in a couple of years, so,
Not
with that
hardly,
in
Larry.
mind, you wanna make it clear and easy for people who volunteer and get involved in this in the future to just realize how fast they have to get up to speed.
Well, that is true. We do the committee guidelines the very first meeting. Kind of jump in the deep end of the pool here. We'll get to that next, but yeah, absolutely. I think we can put that on as, first meeting of the year. We don't have a date for it because that depends on how
Right.
fast we can call the meeting, but first meeting of the year is when the election committee should go over its guidelines and adopt them. Okay. Any other comments or suggestions on
I have a
the?
question, Marty. I've
Yeah,
raised my hand.
you bet.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, are we anticipating, or I should say, are you anticipating using a contractor to update the resident voter rolls this year as we did last year?
I don't know. What do you think, John? I mean, we've got Julian Lampier working with, not only did we clean up the voter roll last year substantially, that was huge, but Julian then was hired by Michael, the village manager, to also work on the village directory. So we now have had him all summer basically updating the directory, even from what we had in the voter roll as of last April. Now we've got an even more up-to-date list on the village directory because he's been working with Michael on a separate contract. So it may be that once we look at what Michael has in terms of the directory, that the committee feels like we don't need to have a separate contractor this year. I personally liked having a separate contractor. I think it took some of the pressure off of the committee in terms of, I mean, we still need to make the final decisions on the voter roll. That's our legal responsibility. But I think it was really incredibly helpful last year. Couldn't have done it without him. And might be a good idea this year. What do you think? John, do you have a feeling about that one way or the other?
I thought Julian did a great job, and that's what I was curious to see if it would be brought back on to, I'm sure there's been a lot of somewhat movement in and out of the village, although I really don't know. Maybe Michael has a better hand on it than I do. That's for sure. But I was just curious since he did a great job, and I would like to see him if we need it. Hopefully, he would come back on and do it. Okay, if we need him.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Katie,
anyway, that's my comment.
Katie, Arthur, do you have thoughts about that?
Well, exactly. He did a great scrubbing last year. I think the roll is in pretty good shape. I think we were going to look at it at like by a year, maybe every other year or every few years, type of contract, but it would be up to the rest of the council, and that would be something we would vote on because of the fund to fund him. Arthur, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, the point, Marty, that you made that he is helping update the directory, which should put that as up to date as possible. So, we don't do the directory every year, so maybe next year would be appropriate to come back and update again. But the directory will be updated, and that's, as you mentioned, people are going in and out all the time. And so you're never going to be up to the last minute, but I think what he comes up with for the directory will be very useful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments, okay?
Yep. Elizabeth, did you have, or Larry, did you have something to say on that? Larry's got a hand up.
I think I want to work on that a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, for example, right now we have Holly Worthington in the village, and who would be, I think she manages 3 offices, realtors' offices right now. And she might be an excellent resource. And I'll call her and talk to her about letting us know which houses in Martin's Additions get sold as an additional reference point of who comes off the roll and who goes on. Okay.
That's a really good idea. We did that last year. I couldn't reach Holly because she was swamped, but I talked to Mr. Boland, Monty Boland, who's also a real estate agent, and he got back to me the same afternoon with a list of all the properties that had been listed for sale or for rent in Martin's Additions in the previous 12 months. And that helped us and helped Julian clean up the voter roll too. Using the local real estate resources is a great idea.
Yeah. Now, what I was going to say is this, the last time, I haven't been a licensed realtor in 20 years, but the last time, if I recall, a person can be set up to get a notice of things that happen in a specific area that they're interested in buying. And it might be that we could set that type of thing up for VMA.
There's a good thought.
The other thing I wanted to pursue, I mean, that takes care of that part. But what about people who move out and rent their properties or are temporarily assigned elsewhere for their like State Department or military, that type of thing? That's the other thing I want to try to figure out is what we can do about that.
Yeah.
So
they have to right now because the council back in a year and a half ago in the summer approved a new definition of qualified voter, which allows people who no longer actually live here but still vote here, if this is their sole voting address. They're just supposed to let us know with some kind of written confirmation that that's true, because otherwise how would we know? And we had one resident actually, send us emails last year that confirmed that she didn't fill out the little form. There are 2 forms. One is a federal form, which is very much standard across states. And then one is a little local Martin's Additions form that the council approved last year. And they're both pretty simple. But we accepted last year, the committee accepted a couple of emails from a resident who was still wanting to vote here and was not registered to vote anywhere else. And we had her and her husband stay on the voter roll per the definition of qualified voter that the council approved a year and a half ago in the summer.
Yeah, but I think, but I want to solidify that more, and I want to make it, I mean, the biggest problem is when somebody leaves, let's say they're not selling, but they're renting, is that they're, there's right now, we don't have any mechanism or even information that they would be aware of where, they could notify us. And there may be some benefits to them on that as well. So that's why I'm working on it, to try to figure out what we can do to make that more reliable as a source. I think, I don't know about the new members here on the committee, but, Marty's talked to the county, the director that runs the county election board, and it's a nightmare on any given year to actually say, is this a solid, accurate voter roll? It is tough to keep it accurate.
Marty, I have a question with your broker background, a realtor background. We have a house here at the dead end of Raymond Street that has been vacant for many, many weeks and remains empty. But the lights burn 24 hours a day throughout the house. Why is that done? Do you have any idea? Is that a normal thing?
Is that next door to you?
It's at the dead end of Raymond Street, across the street from me, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the Paul Weller Annoyance Committee that set that up. Just to pick on you. No, I mean, that's usually indifference. It's often not deliberate. It's people not paying attention.
Well, you think the
So-
realtor that has that listing would turn the lights out?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
On a timer, so it looks like maybe the house is occupied as being constantly empty with lights on.
The only thing you can do is try as nicely as you can to ask them to correct that, you know, and take care of it. There are probably some county ordinances about that, about if the lights are, if they're aimed wrong, or, you know, that type of thing, but best thing to do is to try to
Unscrew the
kiss
bulb.
their butt and beg and ask them to remedy.
You can't go in and unscrew the bulbs, John.
Yeah.
That's breaking
But-
and entering. I
But
know
you-
that's
but,
illegal.
Paul, you can say that you're thinking about maybe selling your house in a couple of years, and you're looking for a reliable realtor. You might get them to pay attention to it that way.
There's a good strategy.
such a waste of energy, it seems to me, to have
It
lights
is.
24 hours a day throughout the house. I mean, you're talking every room.
And
Yeah.
like I said, it looks to me like an invitation to break into an empty house.
Exactly.
Right, we should both focus here again, but good discussion, guys. It's all
Mark,
useful.
Marty,
Yes, Elizabeth.
can I just, one other strategy, I don't know if it's in the terms of reference of block captains are they not in a position to report on when there's changeover in homes?
Yes,
you
the
know-
block captains have been really helpful about that.
Okay,
They're not legally required to do that. Their sort of
Mhm.
job description is that they distribute flyers and things like that
right,
for like the
Mhm.
Halloween party and stuff. But when we asked them last year to help us confirm people who were or were not still residents, most of them were really helpful in that. Not all, you know, it wasn't
Okay.
required, but they were happy to step up and help us confirm. So that's absolutely a
Okay.
resource. Good
okay.
point. Good point. Anything else on any of this? Okay, let's move on then. We have the schedule on the table, the schedule for the 2020 election. And we, you know, it spells out, you know, the nominations and candidate filing date and all the rest of it. Are there any other amendments to that schedule, or should we go ahead and be ready to vote to adopt that schedule? If we're ready to adopt, let's have a motion, because somebody could move to adopt the proposed
I
schedule.
so move.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor of
Aye.
adopting the, okay, any
Favor.
opposed? Okay, 4-0 is the vote on that. And thank you for doing that. The next item that we need to vote on tonight, and the last thing we need to vote on, is to review and adopt the committee's internal guidelines. And you'll see that again, it's a one-pager in your packet. And I want to thank Larry Watson for taking a look at it before the meeting, because he had a couple of good suggestions there. And I'm pulling it up here. Let's find it here. That, you know, some wording changes that I thought were really quite nice. And wanted to know if anybody else had any suggested changes. This is a standard thing that goes back to, in verbal form, 2015. In written form, we first wrote it up in a somewhat simpler version of it, probably in 2016 or 17. And the version that you're looking at tonight is the one that was approved by last year's committee. And I think it's pretty good. I like Larry's changes. I think Larry's changes make it better. Does anyone else have any changes on that?
I have one.
Okay,
I don't know if it's changed, but just it's a question on item 8. The third sentence, the committee will provide public markups to show all proposed election changes, shouldn't it be election regulation changes?
Oh, I think
Or
that's a good,
change,
clear-
or changes to the election regulations?
I think that's a very good improvement, Elizabeth. I would agree with that. That clarifies it.
Right, that was all that I noticed.
Okay.
What,
People want to just sort of jot that on your copy of it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good, good. Any other changes in that? Okay, we're ready, I think, maybe to go to a motion to adopt the guidelines as amended. Do we have a motion to do that?
I know,
Okay, Larry moves as second.
A second.
Second.
Naomi seconds. All in favor of adopting the guidelines as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right. Third item on the action items is just to discuss the 2024 rules and procedures as the basis for this year. And says incorporate the two changes noted by the council in September 2024. Those two changes, one of them was to make the Dropbox mandatory again, which is what the committee last year had recommended. And that was one of the 9 changes that the committee recommended last year, and the council informed us on at the September council meeting that we could go ahead and do that. Is there anyone who objects to making the Dropbox mandatory? Okay, let's do a vote on that. All in favor of making that change, please say aye.
aye,
Any opposed? No. Okay, we'll do that. And thank you to the council for agreeing to do that. The other change that the council approved in September was about adding the recount provision that the committee had initially put in the regs last year, and then the council took them out. And the version that we had last year from the committee said that a candidate could ask for a recount on an election if there was a difference of 10 votes or less between the winner and the loser. Just a flat number, 10 votes. And at the September council meeting, the council told us that they were happy to have the recount provision be in there, which it should be in the regs. But they wanted to have it follow the state law rather than just have a flat number of, if there's 10 votes or fewer separating the winner or loser, you could do a recount. So in your packet is the state law. I went to the state regs and looked it up. So everyone will want to take a look at that was in the packet. Basically, it says it's a formula. You have to do a computation on it. It says basically 5%. So if there were 200 votes for the two candidates, between the winner and the loser candidate, 5% of that would be 10 votes. So same as what we had. If there are 300 votes, then 5% would be 15 votes difference. It's pretty elementary. I think we can actually put the language in pretty simply. But we do need to do a committee vote to incorporate the council's recommendation that we use the formula from the state rather than the simple 10 votes number that last year's committee came up with. Any discussion on that?
So I'm kind of confused. If I'm so looking at this, the state recount regulations, right? Where did ours? Where's the problem?
All right, if you look at what I sent you by email, I highlighted in yellow the state language. You see
Right.
that?
Yes.
And it's basically 5% of the votes that two candidates got. So we'd have to calculate that every year. 1 year it could be 10, 1 year it could be 12, 1 year it could be 15, depending on the number of voters that year. Our
Mhm.
voters generally range between 200 voters a year and 400 voters a year. So somewhere in that range, it would be 5% of that. What this does is prevent candidates who are unhappy but lost by 50 votes from demanding a recount.
Right.
And so
Well,
it sets a limit on when you can ask for a recount.
okay.
Marty, can you say what the location in the approved regulations is, the chapter, the letter and the number?
Okay, last year's VMA regulations took out the provision about recounts. It wasn't
Okay.
in there at all. The
All right.
committee had recommended putting it in, but the council took it out. So
Right.
it's not in the final regs.
What did they recommend? What does it say?
Last year,
Yes.
it said that if there was a difference of 10 votes, hang on, let me pull it up here. I'll read you what it said last year. I'm just pulling it up on my computer, bear with me.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I think you.
It says it was in number 10. This is the committee's recommended regs last year, not the approved ones, because the approved ones
Right.
took this out. The committee recommended in item 10 on section 2, if the margin between the winning and losing candidates is fewer than 10 votes, a losing candidate may request a recount by notifying the committee no later than 3 calendar days after the election results are announced. One sentence. Very straightforward. What we'd
Okay.
need to do to follow the council's instructions from September, a month ago, is say if the margin between the winning and losing candidates is less than 5% of the total votes received by the two candidates, and then the rest would say the same.
Okay.
We'd have to use the 5% rather than the flat 10 votes
Well,
difference.
yeah, but okay, so first off, the past few years are the high point of the amount of voting we've gotten. There have been years where the voting has been really minuscule.
Prior to
So-
2015, the votes were, if we had 100 voters, we counted it lucky.
Yes.
Since
and
2015,
and-
we've had as many as 400.
And in prior years, it was even lower than that.
Yeah, that's
So-
true.
So my point is, these things go up and down
Mhm.
over time. So think about what you're saying. Suppose you ended up with 60 people voting,
Mm-hmm.
okay? That means that if more than, the difference was 4 votes,
Yep.
the state or county regulation would say they can't have a recount.
Right. That's why we put in 10 votes as a flat
I
number.
know. I mean, so using it doesn't work for this small a incorporation, government incorporation.
Unless
That's
you
true.
say, unless you say something that as long as it meets the minimum standard set by the state.
Well, the state doesn't set a minimum because
Well,
the
they
state
don't
doesn't
have
have
a
that
minimum.
problem. They've
Right,
always
okay.
got thousands of voters, right?
Well, that's
Yes.
true,
So-
yeah.
So no, Larry's point about the fact that we're so small that we might have, somebody win or lose by 2 or 3 votes, but it
Uh-huh.
not add up to 5% of the
And
total
that
votes.
has happened. That has
Yeah,
happened.
that has happened. That is real. That's one reason why last year's committee, said a flat 10 votes, because we thought it was more workable for our
Yeah.
purposes here.
Well, I'd like to, Katie, do you have any insight in this?
Okay, so the last year's committee suggested 9 recommendations. And we're going to talk about them in July, and then we had 2 council members fall off the meeting, so we pushed it to September. And then we had the same situation where 2 council members weren't going to be present. So I asked all of my colleagues to just email me back, just, yes, no, down the line. And, out of the 9 recommendations, only 2 were voted with a majority. And that doesn't mean that they can't be suggested again, and no doesn't mean never. But for this one in particular, the consensus was they'd be fine with the recount if we follow the 5% state rule. And otherwise, if that hadn't been voted on, then that would have we wouldn't even have that language right now. So,
Well, but during that conversation, did anyone point out that there have been occasions when we've had votes in the 70s? And that this would be such a minuscule number, it would essentially say no recounts are allowed.
just the consensus went with the 5%. I mean, yes, I know that that's been the case. I know there've been elections where it was a difference of 1 or 2 votes, but
Mhm.
this was the majority on this one.
If I could butt in here,
Yes,
last time we had elections that small was well over 10 years ago. Especially since we've gone to a mail vote, the numbers have been in the hundreds. So
Mhm.
I don't think this is a problem. I think it's not a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a problem for us now. But I think we're trying to get a standardized approach here.
That will work for future elections.
That's right. And in the, you take a look at what's commonly occurred and you see how you can accommodate those situations that you know of that may very well occur. So that's my suggestion, is that we should bring it up again.
Well, I think certainly we can, as a committee, give the council both options with the pro and con. There are two reasons why a simple 10 vote margin is easy. One, number, if you don't have to calculate anything. The future committees can't calculate it wrong and get in trouble that way. And number two, it would set a standard that would apply no matter what the size of the electorate was. You know, if you
And-
have, yeah, so it would apply to all elections for our small elections. And
Yeah,
that
and
those
I
are
don't
two
get-
benefits.
I don't get why it's such a difficult thing, because it's not a difficult thing to do if the recount's requested.
Yeah, you just need some
and-
boundary marker. Yeah.
And you know, when you have a small group like this, neighbors, right? You know, the fact that somebody lost and they're kind of not feeling right about it, they don't think it's right, and they ask for a recount and they get it. It's like a good neighbor thing to do as well. I mean, it doesn't cost us that much and it's simple to do, and I just don't get why it would be somebody would take a stand against it. That's my
Katie,
opinion.
Arthur, you want to respond? Would you be willing to take a vote count of 10 as opposed to the 5%? I mean,
Yeah,
could you
the
live-
only, I think the response was, this was consistent with what the state law was. There wasn't discussion of it. It was pretty much a cut and dry matter. So there was really no discussion.
Okay. Well, one way through this, I think, is for the committee to do a quick write-up for the council meeting coming up this coming Thursday. And just ask the council if they could live with the 10 vote margin, which is the simpler option of the
Right.
two, and more inclusive, per the point that
Yeah.
Larry was making.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take a shot at writing up 3 sentences on that, if the council's willing to consider that. So does that sound like a good way to proceed here?
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Other committee members, do you think we should just do a write-up and ask the council to think about it?
Yes.
Okay, Nomi, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's too much of a responsibility for us to take on without council input, without council decision. This should be their decision.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm writing a note here. I will do a very brief write-up of the pros and cons
Okay.
on the recount language, and we'll ask the council to take a look at it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we have a consensus on the committee for that, 4 for 4, and I'm happy to do a little short write-up. Okay, so we basically have talked about incorporating the 2 changes noted by the council. We've approved the one, and thank you to the council for approving the mandatory drop box. That's important for the voters. And I'll do the short write-up about the recount provision language for Thursday. Okay? The only
Okay.
other item that we have on my notes in terms of rules and procedures for the upcoming year is something that you actually raised, Arthur, over the summer, which is that the question of whether these regulations should include anything about term limits. And you asked me about that twice, and I said, well, there are pros and cons on both sides, pro term limits and against. Right now, the regulations are completely silent. There are no term limits in Martin's editions. And we thank you, especially Arthur, for serving, I believe, 12 terms, or at least 12 years anyway.
I think
I've
it'll
lost-
be 7 terms at the end of the term.
Right, so that's like 14 years, which is tremendous service. And the pros on, the reasons not to have term limits are 2. Number 1, it gives the voters the right to elect anyone they choose, no artificial limits on who they can vote for. And number two, when you have a council for a local village that consists of volunteers, expertise is valuable. Having council members who serve 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 terms, by the time you get to your third term, you usually know what you're doing. And so we thank you for the expertise. I know Katie and you, Arthur, both have really, shown that in sense of just really being wonderful students about picking up, all the different details you have to deal with on so many different issues. So when you have a volunteer council, not having term limits makes sense because you get council members who stick around and have more expertise. The other side of the argument is that you can, in many small towns, have a real problem with this, have what's called a captured council, where you get a good old boys club or a good old girls club that runs things all the time, and new people feel there's no point in running, the same old crew runs things all the time. You don't want to go up against City Hall. You get a lack of civic participation, a lack of trust sometimes amongst the citizenry. So there are some reasons to put in term limits because that does force you to get some new blood on the council. So that's a 2-second summary of term limits, the pros and cons. And I guess my question for the committee members, with welcome input from council members, is should this committee this year, not tonight, but down the road over the next month, consider drafting a provision about term limits? What do you all think? I'm opening it to the committee, but also welcoming input from council members. Elizabeth, Arthur, anybody?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I would appreciate a discussion, and I will make a request of the committee members to come up at the next meeting with 3 reasons, as you did, Marty, 3 reasons for and against doing it, and then in your own mind, after you come up with your own arguments, say where you come out on it. What dominates? And I think, Marty, you summarized it. The voters have all the opportunity in the world to get, throw the rascals out. And do we need a rule to do that? On the other hand, it is said to be in larger scale politics a deterrent on people running. And so I think these are some of the things to be considered. So I would invite everybody to come up with a list of your own of reasons for and against and see how you end up coming out on balance.
Mm-hmm. Committee members, thoughts?
I'm on two minds on this. On the one hand, we really have such few people coming forward to serve. And more often than not, they're retired people because they have the time. And I'm worried about not having enough nominations, not enough candidates once term limits are implemented. But on the other hand, of course, people are discouraged about running against incumbents. So I am strictly in the middle at the moment.
Elizabeth?
Well, I'm sorry, what's the current policy? There are no term limits, is that correct?
Are no term limits at present.
Right. I'll just have to think about it. I'm just thinking about the county executive controversy that's going on right now.
That's a big one. They're trying to put in term limits to kick him out because he's the only one who
Right.
opposes
Talk
the
about,
zoning reg.
manipulation of, of
Yeah.
formats or vehicles.
That is a very politicized term
well,
limits
their
discussion.
term limits are three times, I think. Right. They
Mhm.
want these. But anyway, no, I just like to think about it a little bit more. I mean, it is a problem. Look at our Congress.
Yeah,
you know.
incumbents win 90% of the time, 92% of the time, depending which data set you look at. It's an interesting question. I think that the committee
Yeah.
should do it. I mean, I can take a look into some of the materials on it, but Larry, you got your hand up. What do you think?
Well, it's really interesting listening to what's being said tonight because one of the things that we're looking for is a vibrant council that is in the time. you know, it does represent the interests and desires of the village members in that year or in subsequent years, et cetera. And that's one of the problems with having no term limits, is that not that I get into habits and have stuck opinions or anything, but you get the idea. You know, it's once you've taken a position on something, you know, 8 years ago, should we live by that for the rest of the time that, you know, you're there? Because, you know, it's an insult to you, or you want to stand on it, or should we bring some fresh air in? Well, if you notice, in a lot of ways, this fresh air idea is not as great in our village as it should be. I mean, trying to get people to work on committees and take an interest in our government, it's like, it seems like many of them are not, they're alienated. So maybe one of the things that we could look at is, how do we change that? How do we get these, and by the way, that's another reason why you get incumbents staying in office, because nobody else is running. So how do you deal with that? And I think that's a huge, greater question right now, and maybe we should be looking at that. What is it that would make our villagers more interested and involved with our volunteer government?
That's a really good question, Larry. You know, one of the things that I've done in my professional career is training for people who run volunteer programs, large volunteer programs, with a couple of exercises for the volunteer program managers, whether it's a village council or, you know, the nonprofit organization or another local government or whatever. And there's some exercises that our council and Michael perhaps could do about what makes people volunteer and what deters volunteers, that can be very useful exercises for an organization to go through. Now, I'm thinking about big organizations like, you know, Smithsonian with hundreds of volunteers, or the Rape Crisis Center with 150 volunteers. You know, what makes volunteers step up in the first place? What makes them stay, you know, to re-up? Anyway, there are some exercises there that I could certainly give to the council. If Katie and Arthur, you might be interested in that. I don't know. What do you guys think on the council?
Yeah.
Would you be interested in that?
Yes, and you just reminded me, in last year's community survey, we asked a question about why don't you volunteer, essentially. And I'll send you all the comments. I particularly was interested in the comments.
Yeah,
And you'll see-
let me take a look at that, Arthur,
Yeah.
and if you don't mind, I'll put together the little exercise, 2 exercises that I recall doing with other organizations on this issue about, you know, who volunteers, why they volunteer, how you keep them, all of that stuff. It really would be, I think, a useful exercise. So
But-
send me the comments. You know, let's see what we can put together there. Katie, are you in agreement on that? I don't want to jump the gun at all.
Oh, no, I'm in agreement with any of your suggestions or findings. And in terms of the issue itself about term limits in the VMA, I'm like on the fence. I have to think about it. Like Elizabeth and Naomi said, I see the benefits, the pros and cons to both.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
have-
not.
Yeah, I have noticed, because I've been doing a lot of research, especially this year, since we're coming up to our municipal anniversary of 40 years in March. And I've been doing a lot of research of the former council members, and I've noticed a trend that most people serve, you know, maybe 2-3 terms at the most, and then they just sort of cycle out. And that could be by choice, or because you know, their lives changed and in some cases moved away. Now in Arthur's case, I can't speak for him, but someone's always nominating Arthur. So even if he thinks about not running, someone's always nominating, and people are always voting for him. So he can't help it. So,
Yeah,
Elizabeth, go
but
ahead.
I do think there's a benefit to maybe serving at the most 3 terms sometimes, because I do think it keeps things fresh. But then, you know, Arthur's done a fine job for this community, so it's a tough call. I'd like to know more. You know, I'd like to know what you find and what you suggest, and what we hear from others. Definitely.
Thank you, Katie. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Well, one thing also could be done is to check with other jurisdictions around us, right? So if
Mhm.
their councils have term limits, and how that, and I guess what I'm picking up here is what's the relationship between that and the amount of volunteers that you get, or the variety, this sort of thing, as if there's some kind of dynamic relationship between the two, or there might be, having enough new blood coming in the council to stimulate interest in, for other people that might not have been involved before. But what they're doing, right? Just to see if there are any good models that
Excellent
and
idea.
the other thing is staggered, but that's already the case, isn't it? Staggered terms, so
Yes,
that you're,
yes,
yeah,
we have two council members up for election one year and then 3 the next. So
Yeah.
that has
I
been,
just finally suggest or note that what you would be coming up with would be recommendations. This would require a charter change. And so there's going to be, whatever you recommend, there would be a long process following that to consider that and consider change to the charter.
Yep, I do think it's appropriate though for our committee to have this discussion because who else, right?
Right,
So,
that's right. That's why I suggest, well, it was Josh Bauer when he was on the council. He said the first 2 years he didn't know nothing. The second 2 years he started to learn something. So he said any limit should be at least 3 terms and possibly more. So
one of the suggestions I got from one of the political scientists I talked to about this over the summer when you first raised it, Arthur, was that there actually ought to be what they call apprenticeship council memberships, where somebody gets appointed to the council as an apprentice for their first 2 years. And, they might still get able to vote or something, but maybe half a vote or something. And only after they've served 2 years would they actually get a full vote as a council member. I don't know that that is in practice anywhere, but I thought it was an interesting idea apropos Josh's notion that there is a learning curve here. And council members are asked to get up to speed awfully fast on an awful lot of big issues. So anyway, just a funny idea. Apprenticeships on the council. I think actually that serving on committees can be in effect a pipeline to the council. Certainly the Stormwater Committee is dealing with some pretty serious issues, and that could be a training field for potential future council members, for example. Because we do have a lot of expertise in this village, and people who have that kind of expertise, whether it's on stormwater management or zoning or whatever, would be really valuable on the council. But right now, there's no apprenticeship pipeline other than the committees. And if people aren't excited about serving on the committees, then your pipeline is pretty thin.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Nomi?
Well,
we
I
might-
think
Go ahead.
we have to get real. People who have children and are managing 2 jobs are not going to have the time to serve in the evenings, to take away from their children. I experienced that on the task force on anti-Semitism. Well-intentioned, committed people who just couldn't get away from family obligations in the evenings. And daytime was out of the question. So this kind of volunteer, and one of the points my husband makes is, as long as the garbage is being collected and other services are being done so efficiently, I'm not sure I want to get into the weeds of how the village is governed. And so I think we just have to be real.
Well,
Yeah, go
maybe if
ahead.
people knew how much money flows to the village, Village of Martin's Additions, they might have a different reaction also, right? I mean, it's your tax dollars going there, and it's a sizable budget. And I think that's also something there could be more publicity about how the money's spent, that goes out, that informs people. You might find people taking more interest then,
That's possible.
besides paying for garbage and
Yeah,
tree trimming and that sort of thing.
yeah, but they're not paying any more taxes than they already are. So
Yeah.
it's just being used locally.
Oh,
But
sure.
otherwise it'd be would
but
be
that's
used
what,
by
but
the
it
state.
still is a significant amount, and that's what I'm doing. Some
Yeah.
people might be interested to know that it is that size, you know. When I first saw the figures, I was quite surprised. And I don't think we hear that, I don't get reports on that very often, maybe
No.
annually or something.
There are monthly reports in the council meetings, but of course, most people don't go to the council meetings. Larry,
yeah.
you've been trying to say something. Let me come over to you. Larry, speak up.
Well, Naomi, I really appreciate your, almost every thoughts I've ever heard you come up with.
Well, thank
But
you. Nobody's ever
I'm-
said that to me.
I'm thinking back, you know, I raised 2 kids here. And I coached their soccer teams, their baseball teams. I was an usher at the synagogue. I served 16 years every month on the fire board, the directors of that thing. And I served on the village council because Gene Sperling said to me, it's time for you to do it. So we did raise our kids. It was a busy schedule. My God, my daughter was a traveling soccer player. She even played in Ireland.
Wow.
And we did a lot of stuff. And yet I spent a lot of time on community involvement and stuff because that's the strength of a family and community.
Right.
So I think that we need to offer or have that opportunity made available to our village people by making them enjoy their government. And I don't think they do right now. And that's why I brought that up.
Let's just get real. It's not real fun.
Yeah, and it's not, but
It's not
think
fun.
about this. Some of the things that Marty and I've been trying to get people to listen to is if you're a volunteer and you have no experience, as Josh brought up, and you make a decision that people dislike, you take it personally rather than realizing and the people criticizing you not realizing that you are a volunteer, you don't have any insight. There isn't much provided for anybody about how to see things. And you make the mistake of becoming defensive and insulted. So one of the issues is that kind of training for volunteers that work and the council members of how to understand what's going on as well as for the village. The other thing is how to make the village think well when they think of the government. And I know some of it can be silly, but think about it. For years, we've gone on here with a crippled communication system. Nobody actually has a warm communication system here for this village, and everybody's delaying on it. The other thing is that imagine that I wanted to complain because they didn't pick up my trash this week, right? By now, with all the AI and I don't know if you know what SaaS is, but it's like that. You can have the ability to one, put a comment in, send it to the village. You get a response back. Katie, I want to thank you for being one of the first people to acknowledge a piece of communication when I sent you my letter and you actually acknowledged it back. Because that's not done anywhere near enough. Say, hi, we appreciate you. Thanks for the communication. Somebody puts a complaint in, they should hear back. Thank you, we got your computer, we're looking into it. I've assigned that to Benny Hill to do it. You know, Benny Hill. So, but the point being, and then when it gets resolved, I get an answer back. Wow, that's my community. I want to work back and return the favor. We don't have that environment. And we need to think, and we've got $5 million sitting around doing nothing. Come on.
That is a whole other thing.
Well, we've got the money to bring in the resources to create that environment. And if we do, I think you'll get more people volunteering and you'll get a healthier, better government. And that's why I want to be elected instead of Donald Trump.
It's a discussion that really goes beyond way beyond term limits. You know, it's a very important one, but it's a big, it really needs kind of a holistic look at the, it's a, you know, if it's a communication issue
Yes.
that's going to encourage also participation and involvement and all of that. So I agree with you that you know, that might be a good investment for for our village to look at some kind of training, but I mean, very particular training from somebody, you know, somebody really up to date on this kind of thing, on how effective local governments, how they become effective and dynamic and responsive, and, you know, and stay that way.
Yeah, there,
So
there
I'm
is
sure
an
that-
institute. There is an institute at the University of Maryland that does that kind of thing for local governments on a lot of issues.
Mhm.
You know, I'll have to look and see if their training courses have it. And what I find, I'll send to
Mhm.
you, Katie, and to you, Arthur, both, and of course to everybody on our committee here. It is a bigger question than the election committee. It's much
Mhm.
broader. But boy, what a legacy that would be to leave Martin's Editions, wouldn't it? You know,
Mhm.
for
I
this
mean-
council to really tackle that.
I mean, think about it, for a minute. Suppose that we set up term limits and that we boot Arthur out. And
Don't take it
now-
personally, Arthur.
let's
not
boot
personal.
Arthur out. Let's get rid of it. But the point is, you know, and then somebody comes in, well-meaning, you know, but just doesn't get it. And major decisions are made that are really not great, okay? So if you're gonna do term limits, which I absolutely think you should to keep government fresh, okay, you need to create a warm, healthy government that people want to be involved with. That's why I brought it up. I realize it's a second issue and a more difficult issue, but you're not going to get the volunteers if you don't create the environment.
I think we should wrap up this discussion on that
Yes.
note. That makes good sense to me. And Arthur and Katie, thank you for being part of this discussion, because this is really a council level discussion. And I'll get some materials to you and to the committee. And I want to thank everybody for this really good discussion. 8:15 was our residents' comments, questions, and suggestions. We still have John Sharrow and Paul Weller as residents here. Anything you want to add, John or Paul, before we wrap up this and call it
I just
adjournment?
want to, the members of the council, I just want to comment on Naomi's point about, hey, the trash is getting picked up, the streets are getting swept. The council has done a hell of a good job of hiring some competent people, such as Mike,
Yay.
to do the city things that
For the
need to be
management.
done. I
Mhm.
mean, really, I mean, if it wasn't for competent people sitting in the office getting things done, you know, for instance, like the tree on Taylor Street that blew over during the storm, now the sidewalk has been repaired and replaced in record time. You know, really, I think the council has really have good people, and I think maybe the public as a whole is sort of lackadaisical. You know, hey, things are running damn well, you know, and taxes are reasonable. So what the hell? Why get involved in something that is going to occupy time or maybe create some ill will or whatever? But you know, that's my point. Here again, I think the council as a whole has done well, whether we have term limits or not. I mean, I probably would recommend term limits in thinking about it, but that's beside the point. But overall, I think the council's done a hell of a good job of, and also the electric committee is, I have to throw that in, has done a good job past year as well. Okay. How's that?
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. That's lovely on all counts. Thank you. Paul,
I-
before, go ahead. Yeah, Paul?
I was just gonna say, I agree with John. We were very fortunate to have the caliber of people within our little village that to volunteer and spend their time and effort. You know, we should be we should be appreciative of that effort. So anyhow, we're very fortunate. So
And thank you, Paul, because you've been a longtime volunteer going back to 1980s. And again, I think Arthur and Katie, I hope you're hearing the compliments here, because a lot of work has been done here, and you really, you know, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
All right. Committee assignments. The only committee assignments that we have are to, from this point, look into term limits. Everybody can do some research there and I'll get back to you with some materials too. I have the assignment of writing up a thing about the recount language for the council meeting before Thursday. I'll do a little short written report, probably just a paragraph, because we do committee reports at each council meeting during the year. And I'll run that committee report by everybody on the committee, so you can take a look at it. That's gonna be a quick turnaround item, because I probably won't get it written till Wednesday, and the committee meeting, the council meeting is Thursday, so look for that in your emails. And the only other assignment is for all of us to take a look at the election regs from last year that were approved in January. And I'll send you little red line notes about the committee's recommendations last year. And be prepared to set the next 2 meetings. I would like to recommend that we meet on the first Monday of each month. So I'm looking at my calendar, and that would be Monday, November 4th, and Monday, December 6th. At the December, Monday, November, December 2nd, sorry, December 2nd. So can you meet on November 4th, Monday night at 7:30, and can you meet on December 2nd, 7:30? 2 Mondays. Can you check your calendars right now before we adjourn?
Good for me.
Okay,
Good.
Elizabeth, good?
My calendar is downstairs. I'm very old
Okay.
fashioned. It's hanging on the wall.
Mine's hanging on the wall too, but I'm sitting beside it.
So, I
Okay,
don't think I'll do the mad dash, but I assume, I'm quite sure it probably is free. I know there's no travel or, anything like that coming up, so.
and Nomi?
But yeah, I'm checking mine. I'm okay.
Okay, so first Monday in November, first Monday in December. 7:30 both times.
Yeah.
And Arthur,
I'll-
thank you for being available.
Yeah,
Got it.
I can move I have a meeting with Elon Musk on the.
Well,
But
you
I
just
can
tell
move that.
Elon to wait, because we are important. Tell him to cool his jets, literally.
Tell him
Not
to
mention
keep his money.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really.
He's gonna send me to outer space. Hey, I'm gonna start a village on Mars.
Okay, first Monday in November, first Monday in December.
It's 7:30.
7:30, right? I want to sort of standardize our meetings. And I don't think we meet more than one a month. So let's see if we can do that. This has been a great meeting, you guys, a great discussion. I really appreciate you all so much. And any other committee assignments that I forgot?
I'll tell you,
Alright.
the only thing I worry about is January,
Yeah, let me
first
look at January.
Monday, January. We should really look at that because it could run into New Year's Day or something.
Yeah, January 31st is a Tuesday, which
No,
means
first Monday of January.
first Monday of January is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th, January 5th.
Okay,
So I think that might work. So sort of after New
it's
Year's.
actually the 6th.
The 6th? Ah,
Yeah,
okay. January 6th works for me.
yeah, okay.
Okay,
All right.
all right. Can we have a
Okay.
motion to adjourn? Unless anybody has anything else they'd like to add?
Move,
Yes. Larry,
so move.
move to adjourn, second.
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
I agree.
Yeah.
We are adjourned at
you.
8:58 PM. Thank you, everybody, for a really fun meeting.